Is India really unsafe? Why women feel unsafe in India? What is the economic cost which is associated with this insecurity, and can safety unlock growth for us? Imagine stepping out of your home with fear every day. Safety, which should be a right, is a daily struggle for women, where it goes ahead and shapes their work, freedom and education as well. If you go by NCRB data, you will find that women are relatively safe in India. But the recent Nari report highlights that that number is missing by almost 100 times, and it is almost 40% women which feel unsafe in our own country. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and today we are going to understand the highlights of the Nari report that have just come out, to understand that how we can unlock economic potential with ensuring safety, and why women's safety is not an important component of just society but economy and polity as well. Let us begin by understanding that when we are compromising on women's safety, we are compromising on multiple goals at the state level, national level and at the global level as well. So when we talk about Viksit Bharat, the idea of what developed country India would look like by 2047, it is very much based on the fact that there will be inclusivity and there will be equal opportunity for all, and there will be no distinction especially based on gender. Furthermore, when we are talking about women's safety, it becomes a non-negotiable foundation, very much required foundation when we are talking about Viksit Bharat. Not just that, our sustainable development goal number 5 talks about gender equality, where the target 5.1 itself talks about ending discrimination against women and girls, and the further subsets of target 5, sustainable development goal 5, focuses on women's safety as well. Another thing that you need to understand right here is the fact that the numbers that lie in front of us, especially the NCRB data, it records only the registered cases. It has no preview for you as per when we are talking about everyday harassment and the registered, unregistered cases which people do not come forward putting in terms of paper itself. Now this new report, NARI 2025 Nari report, it is the first index by NCW which captures the lived experiences as well as the perception of safety that exists in our own country. It has gone ahead and surveyed almost 13,000 women in 31 cities, and now let us look what is the real picture that lies in front of us that has come forward through this particular report. So when we talk about the highlights of the report, the national safety score that has come, that has been only 65%. Women who are feeling unsafe in our country lies somewhere around 40%. The harassment prevalence is 7%, and if we are talking about the age 18 to 24, it is the double, that is 14% for girls, and the reporting rate is somewhere between 20 to 30%. But when we talk about the harassment prevalence, the number that is here, it is almost missing by 100% that is reported in NCRB data, and that clearly highlights the fact that how just we cannot depend on the registered cases number to understand the scenario that exists in our society and how it impacts other aspects around it. When we are talking about the data that has come in front of us through the key findings of Nari 2025, we also need to see that this is not the only number which is telling us this unsafe story of women in our country. We do have other numbers as well which clearly tell the same story in front of us, where India had ranked 128th in Women's Safety Index. Many of you might applaud it as an upgradation from 148 to 128, but we really need to see that how poor is that number in a country where women are considered the form of goddesses. Furthermore, if you look at this map given here, it talks about Women Peace and Security Index, and the index is being labeled, the highest one being more than 0.8, that means highest would be 1 and least would be 0. If you see in here, India, which talks about becoming a developed country, which is a fastest growing economy, major growing economy at this point of time, lies, it is hanging in between, and that is why this color is so different from the other developed places that we are talking about. Now, the reason I am putting this forward is this not only shows the picture of the unsafe scenarios that exist in our country, but it also shows us the picture that how we are lagging in terms of development, economic growth because of this insecurity, because of this non-safety standards that exist in our country, and how this impacts us need to be understood, because this is not just about one particular gender, rather than how the untapped potential of this gender goes out and affects the whole of the country. Now let us move ahead and understand the difference that this report has highlighted for us in terms of the actual numbers, crime numbers that have been put in front of us through NCRB data. So when we are talking about NCRB data, it never actually records when we are talking about the safe or unsafe feeling, that is not captured. NARI 2025 has given it as 40%. When we are talking about harassment incidents, it is near to 0.07%. And when we are talking about crime rate, it is perception based. The calculation here is perception based, and it is only 66.4 per 1 lakh population, which is absolutely misleading in this scenario. This report has also highlighted many cities, where the safest cities have been Mumbai, we have Kohima as well, Gangtok and Bhubaneswar. You must not miss on the fact that how eastern part of our country is leading our way in here, but the least safe countries are Delhi, Kolkata, Ranchi, Srinagar and Faridabad. Furthermore, another thing that has been highlighted, that this perception of non-safety increases at the night time because it is linked to poor lighting which is present across alleys. We have unsafe transport and deserted streets. So there is a sharp decline which is seen in safety perception even in the given cities as present. Now let us directly move and understand that what are the impacts of such poor standards of safety that exist in our country, especially for women. So when we are talking about impacts, we will be looking into wide dimensions, starting with economic impact. So when we are talking about economic impact, we have low female labor force participation, which is way below the global average, and this safety issue is one of the key reasons present here. Furthermore, women usually prefer the colleges or the educational institutions based on the safety and the nearness, and again that is associated with safer travel as compared to lesser travel or more important education institution. If we go by a global estimate by McKinsey, we have found that if there is safer environment in India, it could automatically lead to $770 billion addition to India's own GDP. And if we are talking about global estimates, in our country, violence against women already costs us around 2% of GDP, that is $1.5 trillion. Now these numbers are big enough to highlight that this is not just limited to roads, this is not just limited to certain lanes or certain cities. This problem is existent at the level of our nation and it impacts our economy directly. If we look at the cost breakdown, if we talk about the direct cost in here, you will find healthcare expenses, legal proceedings, and indirect cost. There is reduced productivity which is seen in women, absenteeism, job withdrawal and wage losses. So all of this is impacting our economy, where we see that the direct cost right in front of us, but indirect costs are way too higher that are present. Furthermore, when we are talking about other dimensions such as sectoral impact in terms of economy, you will find sectors such as textiles, footwear, gem industries, usually they are female dominated. Now when they are female dominated, they are more vulnerable to disruption if there is lesser labor force participation, female labor force participation, especially because of safety. Tourism sector has always been in India suffering because of the unsafe perceptions. The potential that tourism in India holds, and especially in the cities, is limited because of this factor. And the gig economy which is emerging, especially with women-centric activities, actually can be the main focus of inclusive growth that we are actually really talking about. Furthermore, if you look into the other impacts such as societal and psychological impacts, the first thing that you need to understand, for a person who actually roams around in fear, who gets up and is worried to go out of home, they have a direct mental health impact. They have anxiety, they have depression, they could have PTSD, and it is all linked to harassment. It also leads to emotional trauma, social withdrawal, low self-esteem, distrust, and all of this also impacts the output, productivity, again, which can be a direct impact which we see in our economy. Apart from that, there are societal restrictions as well which come in at the very same time. For example, the person, women's right to the city, to be in the city, to do things in the city is severely compromised. Furthermore, public spaces, because lesser women feel safe outside, the public spaces will become male dominated. That means fewer women will be seen in public spaces. And if you find a space where fewer women already feel unsafe because of further that, and there is greater harassment risk as well. And the safety, the fact, actual societal fact that safety is directly tied to honor and respectability, which increases the control that we see in our society, especially over women, and which highlights the gender inequality on the term that we actually started. But to change this scenario, it will not happen in a day, we are aware of it, and we need to move forward with policy and legal reforms where we need to make sure that there is clearance of judicial backlog, there is actually reporting of such cases, and making sure that the law lies with people and women here. Furthermore, women-centric urban planning can be the next highlight that you can use as case study also, but to understand that how integrating every community's need in planning will be actually sustainable for the urbanization also and growth also. How? If we are talking about safe transport, reliable transport, proper street lighting, CCTV coverages, etc. So, if cities are designed like that, then they will foster inclusivity and they will also reduce male-dominated hotspot spaces and ensure safety as well. What are your suggestions that can be used to make sure that the spaces around us are safe for women and the numbers for India change, not just in terms of safety index but also economic output? You can let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.